I still can't forget what happened 2 weeks ago at Hollows End Hospital. I was 31 and took the night shift job to help pay bills after my partner lost their job. The hospital was old and run down, but I thought it would be okay. It felt eerie when I pushed my cart through the empty hallways. The strong smell of antiseptic lingered in the air. I could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing above me, and sometimes I wondered why I was alone in such a big place. First, my routine was easy. I mopped floors, restocked supplies, and listened to music while I worked. But on my third night, everything changed. Around 2 a.m., I heard something. Footsteps echoed in the dim corridor outside the supply room. I paused, thinking it was just the building settling. I shrugged it off and kept working. As the week went on, the footsteps grew clearer. They would shuffle closer and then stop suddenly outside patient rooms. Each time, my heart raced as I glanced over my shoulder. I started to feel uneasy for no reason. The silence after those footsteps hung heavily in the air. One night, I noticed a cart I had parked move closer to the door. I frowned. I could have sworn I left it against the wall. Things started to feel wrong. I always checked the rooms before my shift. I told myself I was just tired. But there was a coldness in the air, like someone was watching me. On the fifth night, I walked down a long corridor and felt goosebumps on my arms. The footsteps returned, clearer than before. I turned quickly, but no one was there. My heart raced, and I felt a chill run down my spine. As the nights passed, I began to see things flicker in my peripheral vision. Equipment was out of place, but I didn't see anyone moving it. I thought maybe a nurse was playing tricks, but I never crossed paths with anyone. I tried to push my worries away and focus on my job. Then one night, the footsteps stopped right outside my supply room. Panic washed over me. I gripped the mop handle and made myself breathe. I told myself to be rational, but dread filled my stomach. I waited, each tick of the clock loud in the silence. After what felt like forever, I slowly opened the door. It was empty. Just the cold corridor stretched before me, and I felt an icy knot in my stomach. Then I turned around. I swear I heard someone whisper my name. It was so low, but it felt real. I stepped back, bumping my cart. It rattled loudly, and it sent my heart racing. I still hear those footsteps in my mind sometimes. Now, even at home, that feeling won't leave me. Was it just my imagination, or was I sharing that hospital with something I couldn't see? I still don't know. I don't think I ever will. I tried to shake off the feeling. I didn't want to dwell on it, but couldn't help it. The next night was my first back at the hospital since things got weird. I parked in the lot, half hoping for a busy night to distract me. The rain poured, and the sound drowned out the memory of those whispers. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. Immediately, the scent of antiseptic hit me. My heart raced as I navigated the dimly lit hallways. I refused to look down the corridors where I heard the footsteps. I focused on my tasks. Mopping floors, restocking supplies, just keep my head down. But it was hard to ignore the unease that sat heavy in my stomach. I turned the corner to find my cart exactly where I had left it, thankfully. I knocked some supplies into place and forced myself to hum along to the music in my earbuds. Around midnight, I crossed paths with an older nurse on the floor. Her face looked drawn, and her eyes held a tiredness that matched mine. I wanted to say something, to ask if she ever heard anything strange, but the words wouldn't come out. Instead, I nodded and she rushed past me, leaving a lingering tension in the air. The clock ticked loudly as I worked, but during those brief moments of silence, I heard it again. The shuffling. I froze. It started soft, but then it grew louder. It was just outside the supply room. I glanced at the door, heart pounding. I stepped quietly toward it, gripping the mop like a weapon. My breath felt shallow as I reached for the handle. Just as I was about to pull it open, the sound stopped. For a moment, I thought maybe it had been my imagination, but then I heard a raspy whisper, distinct and close. Help me, that was it. I gasped loudly, my heart racing. I couldn't move. I felt like I was trapped in my own mind, and that whisper echoed in my ears. After what felt like forever, I gathered the courage and opened the door with a quick pull. Nothing. The hallway stretched empty before me, but it felt wrong. Something was off. My skin crawled as I peered into the darkness. Suddenly, I heard the unmistakable sound of a door creaking shut at the end of the corridor. It echoed eerily through the stillness. That was it. I grabbed my cart and started moving quickly. Then I saw a shadow darting around the corner, just beyond my line of sight. I gasped and nearly dropped the mop. Time seemed to stand still as I hesitated. The flickering lights added to the unease, like a heartbeat echoing in the my instincts kicked in. I needed to leave. As I rushed to the exit, my stomach turned. Someone or something was in there with me. I pushed through the door and didn't look back. The moment I stepped outside, the rain hit my face, cool and bringing a breath of clarity. But I knew that whatever haunted those halls was still there, and it wasn't done with me yet. The next few days felt like a blur. I returned to my routine, but the weight of that night hung over me. Each sound in the hospital felt amplified, like it was asking me to remember. I couldn't shake it off, but I couldn't afford to be distracted either. I walked into the break room, hoping a cup of coffee would steady my nerves. The bright fluorescent lights flickered, and I glanced up, half expecting to see something lurking behind them. I shook my head. Stop it. Just get your coffee and focus. I spotted the older nurse from the other night, Lisa. She sat in the corner with a tired look on her face. I debated whether to approach her, but opted for caution. The whispers still echoed in my mind. Hey, Lisa, I said finally, my voice tentative. She looked up, startled. Oh, hey, you're back. Yeah, just trying to get through my shifts, I replied, forcing a smile. She chuckled softly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Same here. It's been a little tense lately. I hesitated, then asked, have you noticed anything unusual? Her expression shifted. It was almost a mix of fear and concern. What do you mean? I took a sip of my coffee, trying to mask my anxiety. You know, sounds or anything weird like that. Her gaze dropped to her cup. Sometimes you hear things. The old wings of the hospital creak and groan. But it's usually just the building settling. Right? I muttered, unconvinced. Before I could ask more, the break room door swung open, and another nurse hurried in. Lisa, they need you in the ER. Stat. Lisa stood up with a grimace. Duty calls. Catch you later? Sure. I nodded, though my stomach turned. Once the door closed behind her, I returned to my coffee, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread. The whispers, the shuffling, it was still in the air. I decided to check on my card, needing a distraction. As I moved through the corridors, the lights flickered above, and the shadows deepened. I took a deep breath, willing myself to keep moving. Just as I approached my area, the air shifted. I heard it again, the soft, shuffling sound. My heart raced, and I glanced around. It seemed to beckon me from the supply room again. Stop it, I whispered to myself, but my feet moved forward. This time, I didn't hesitate. I rounded the corner and walked straight to the door. My hands shook as I gripped the handle, but the curiosity pushed me. I opened it slowly. Inside, the room was still, the only sound my breath echoing in the small space. But then, without warning, a supply box toppled over, spilling its contents across the floor. I jumped back, exhaling sharply. Hello? I called, unsure why I had even spoken. My voice felt lost in the silence. I stepped inside, scanning every inch of the room. Amid the chaos, I spotted something on the floor, a small badge that hadn't belonged to me. I recognized it, though. It belonged to another nurse who had gone missing months ago. That's when I saw it. A figure standing at the far end of the room, cloaked in shadow. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled backward, throwing the door open to flee. But as I did, the lights flickered one last time, plunging the room into darkness. I didn't stop running. I burst through the door and sprinted down the corridor. My mind raced faster than my feet. The echoes of my footsteps blended with the fading sound of whatever had been lurking behind me. Was it just my imagination? My heart pounded against my chest as I rounded a corner, crashing into another nurse. Whoa, are you okay? She asked, eyes wide. I steadied myself, breathing in short bursts. Did you see someone? In the supply room? She frowned. No. Why? What happened? I shook my head, trying to form my words. I don't know. I think I saw something. Her expression shifted from concern to doubt. You're probably just tired. We all are. The night shifts. I know what I saw. I snapped. The urgency bubbled over. It was there. And that badge, it belonged to a nurse who disappeared months ago. Her eyes widened in realization. Wait, you mean Jen? I thought they found her. I swallowed hard. No, they didn't. What if she is still here? Let us go check it out, she suggested, but her voice faltered. I could tell she was uncertain. We can't just ignore it, I insisted. The need to uncover the truth was overwhelming. We returned to the supply room, the air thick with tension. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting something to follow. The lights buzzed ominously. As we reached the door, I hesitated. "You first," I whispered, trying to appear brave. With a shaky hand, she turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room looked untouched, as if nothing had happened. The badge was still lying on the floor, a stark reminder of what we were there to confront. "There's nothing here," she said, half relieved, half uneasy. "Look." I pointed at the badge. "It's Gen S. It's evidence that something's wrong." She knelt, picking it up. "This doesn't make sense. How did it get here?" Just then, a sharp sound echoed through the room, causing us both to freeze. It was a soft but distinct shuffling, like footsteps padding against the floor behind us. The chill raced down my spine. I turned slowly, the unease tightening around me. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. "I did," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Before we could react, the lights flickered violently, and the air felt electric. Something moved in the corner of my vision. I spun around, but it was too late. The shadow slid past me, brushing against my shoulder as it went. My body jolted, paralyzed by fear. "Run!" I shouted, breaking the trance. We bolted out of the room, the hallway stretching before us like a dark tunnel. As we raced down the corridor, my thoughts swirled. Each corner we turned, I expected the figure to follow. I forced myself to breathe, to keep my focus on escaping this nightmare. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't just a simple haunting. Something terrible had happened, and it wanted to be discovered. "Where do we go?" she yelled, panic rising. I didn't have an answer. All I could do was feel the weight of what I had uncovered loom over me like a cloud. I turned a corner and spotted the ER entrance. The bright lights inside felt like a beacon. "Over there." I pointed. We raced toward it, but just as we reached the door, it swung open, revealing Lisa, her expression shocked. "Why are you running?" she demanded, concern masking something else, something darker. "We saw something," I panted, and then the lights flickered again, and I felt the darkness closing in behind me. "Get inside," Lisa urged, pulling us through the door before I could respond. She slammed it shut behind us, her face tight with worry. I leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. "We saw something in the supply room." Gen S badge was there. "What badge?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "The one belonging to the nurse who disappeared. We found it." Lisa's face paled. "How did you get it?" My heart shifted uneasily at her tone. "We were looking for answers." "But then what?" she pressed, glancing at the door as if expecting someone to burst through. "Then we heard the footsteps," I admitted, my voice shaky. "They were right behind us." Her eyes darted around the room. "We need to stay quiet." "What do you mean?" My stomach twisted. "You know something." "I don't want to talk about it here," she replied, her tone clipped. "Why not?" I insisted. "If there's something going on." Suddenly, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat. My pulse raced. I felt the weight of Lisa's gaze on me, filled with something I couldn't read. A loud bang reverberated through the walls, making us both jump. "What was that?" she hissed. That I couldn't formulate a response. The reality of our situation settled heavily on my chest. I could almost feel the chill creeping from the edges of the room, seeping into our hiding place. That's when I realized something. It was too quiet now. "Where's the nurse we saw?" I asked urgently, scanning the small space. "I don't know," Lisa replied defensively. "She was with me earlier, but I haven't seen her since." I shook my head. "This doesn't make any sense. We can't be the only ones who've noticed the strange things happening here." Before Lisa could answer, the unmistakable sound of soft footsteps echoed outside the door. I felt my heart drop. It wasn't just my imagination. There was something out there. "Should we call for help?" I suggested, but dread filled me. "What if it wasn't safe?" Lisa shook her head sharply. "No, don't draw attention." The footsteps stopped. An awful silence draped over us, thick enough to swallow our breaths. I felt as if we were being watched, and I couldn't shake the sensation of cold fingers trailing down my spine. Just then, a voice whispered from the other side, barely audible but unmistakable. "Help me." I exchanged a glance with Lisa, both of us frozen in fear. "Who was that?" Without thinking, I reached for the door. "We need to get out of here. Now." "Wait, don't." Lisa reached out to stop me, but it was too late. I had already opened the door a crack. The hallway stretched out before me, barren and unnerving. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaking. Is anyone there? The whisper came again, lingering in the damp air. Help. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered off completely. A chill swept through the corridor as I stepped further into the darkness, my heart pounding in my ears. What just happened? I wondered. The icy grip of dread settled around me, stifling my breath. I was on my own, and something terrible was waiting for me in the shadows. I hesitated at the threshold of darkness, the silence pressing in on me. The hallway felt endless. I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me, but I could hear the faint echo of that pleading voice lingering in the air. Help me. I couldn't tell if it was real or part of my imagination. I peeked out a little further, the flickering of the emergency lights providing brief glimmers of reassurance. I had to know what was happening. Lisa? I whispered back, hoping she was still behind me. Can you come? No answer. My heart raced faster. I gripped the door frame, torn between wanting to retreat into the safety of the room or press forward into the unknown. I took a shaky breath and stepped into the hallway. The floor felt cold beneath my feet, and a draft brushed past me as if the hallway itself was exhaling a sigh of discouragement. That I moved cautiously, scanning the walls for the known structure of the hospital. The sounds of my footfalls echoed loudly, broken only by the distant murmurs hiding deeper in the shadows. Help, help me. There was desperation in that voice, but something about it felt wrong, almost like a lure. I stopped, frozen, an unsettling feeling creeping back into my gut. I turned back, ready to rush into the safety of the room, but as I did, the door slammed shut. A loud thud reverberated through my chest, and I knew Lisa was still trapped in there. Lisa! I shouted, panic washing over me. Open the door. The silence that came was deafening, and with every second that ticked by, my heart sank deeper. I pressed my ear against the door, desperate to catch a whisper of her voice, but there was nothing. Then, I heard it again, footsteps, but this time they were getting closer. They echoed in the hall, measured and deliberate. Fear clawed at my throat. I was going to be trapped here, alone, just like Jen. I quickly glanced back down the corridor where shadows seemed to shift and swirl. I took a hesitant step forward, compelled to see what was making that chilling sound. The lights flickered back on, revealing a bewildering scene. There, at the end of the hall, stood a figure shrouded in white. I squinted, hoping it was a trick of the light, but it didn't fade. Instead, the figure turned toward me. Its eyes were hollow, and even from where I stood, I could sense an overwhelming presence of despair. Help me, it whispered again, its voice hauntingly familiar. Something inside me sparked with recognition. I took a step back, heart racing as the figure moved, swaying like a tree caught in a storm. It felt like it was beckoning me closer, pulling me into its dark gravity. That was when the lights again flickered, and the figure vanished from sight. I stared into the darkened hallway, breathless and confused. Where did you go? I muttered, barely able to comprehend what was happening. Then it hit me, with the figure gone. The silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Now I could hear Lisa's faint scratching on the other side of the door. Help! I shouted again, desperation clawing at my voice. My instincts told me I had to get back to her, but dread threatened to swallow me whole. Suddenly, I felt the coldness return, creeping back in, and I turned to see the darkness swirling anew. That's when I saw it. A glimmer along the floor where the light hit just right. Something shiny, Jen's badge. I grabbed it without thinking, clutching it tightly in my hand. Then I felt a chill. The figure was back, closer now. And then I heard it, loud and clear. I just want to go home. My heart raced as I readied myself to face whatever was in the dark, knowing I had only moments before I would need to decide how far I was willing to go to get out of this nightmare. The chill grew heavier around me, but I couldn't take my eyes off that empty space. I could still hear the echoes of that pleading voice bouncing around the hall. I just want to go home. It hung in the air like a haunting refrain. I tightened my grip on Jen's badge. It wasn't much, but it felt like a lifeline. I thought about turning around and running back to the door. That's what I should have done. But curiosity pulled at me. What might I find? I hesitated again, straining to listen. The distant footsteps blended into the wall as shadows. Each click echoed like a countdown in my mind. I took a deep breath and stepped further into the corridor, following the sound as if it had a tangible direction. The air felt thicker with every step. I stepped over patches of darkness, unsure if they would swallow me whole. Something moved. I caught a glimpse of white at the corner of my eye, a mere flicker, but enough to seize my thoughts. Had I seen the figure again? Or was it just a trick of my imagination? Lisa. I called again, my voice breaking. I was losing hope, sinking deeper into the nightmare. A part of me clung to the idea that Lisa was still near, strong enough to bring me back if I found her. Then I saw a door to my right, slightly ajar. My heart skipped a beat as I approached it. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal, listening. Was that her voice I heard? It was muffled, more frantic than before. Help, please. Without thinking, I pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. The room was dark, but a sliver of light slipped through the curtains, revealing a tattered bed and a nightstand overflowing with papers. It looked like a storage space for discarded medical supplies. I moved further into the room, heart pounding. The scratching sound stopped instantly. I scanned the small space, searching for any trace of Lisa. Can you hear me? I'm coming, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Suddenly, I felt the air change. The door creaked behind me, closing slow enough for me to know I was not alone. I spun around, my instincts kicking in. The room felt like it contracted, pressing against me with an unbearable weight. Get out. A voice hissed. I froze, eyes darting around the room. It wasn't Lisa's voice. Who was that? I wanted to scream, but the words hung like a lump in my throat. The silence stretched thin before breaking as the room trembled with energy. And then, through the wide-open window, a shadow darted past. I watched in shock as something slipped outside, vanishing into the dark night. My mind raced. It felt like a warning that I surged forward, desperate to catch a glimpse of whatever it was. But no clues remained. The hallway was empty again, suffocatingly quiet, and my heart sank. I had come this far, but now I couldn't just stand there. I took a deep breath and stepped back into the corridor, ready to confront whatever situation awaited me. The sound of footsteps echoed again, but this time they were not just echoes. They were leads, pushing me forward. I felt it deep in my bones. I had to find Lisa, and now I knew I wasn't alone. Turning the corner, I gathered my courage. The hallway stretched ahead, dimly lit, promising answers and more dangers. With every second, it became clear I wasn't sure what awaited me, but I was ready to dig deeper, even if it cost me. The corridor stretched on, a labyrinth of uncertainty, and I pressed forward with a mix of fear and determination. The soft echo of footsteps persisted. With every step, I felt like I was being drawn deeper into an abyss. I needed to find Lisa, but the twisting shadows seemed to mock me. Suddenly, the footsteps halted. I froze, scanning my surroundings. My breath caught in my throat when I noticed an old nurse's station at the end of the hall. It looked abandoned, but there was light flickering from underneath the door. Maybe someone was inside. My heart raced as I approached, each step feeling heavier than the last. That I reached for the handle, and doubt crept in. What if it wasn't a rescue? What if whoever was inside wanted to keep me from Lisa? I hesitated, but the thought of leaving this place without answers drove me. I turned the knob and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was cluttered, papers stacked high and medical supplies scattered like confetti. The light flickered and hummed, making the space feel alive. But I was alone, or so I thought until I heard it, a soft whimper from the corner. I spun around, eyes wide, and there she was, Lisa. She was huddled on the floor, trembling. Relief flooded my senses, but it quickly morphed into panic. Lisa, I cried out, rushing to her side. She looked up, her eyes wide and haunted. Help me, she whispered, her voice barely audible. They won't let me go. What did she mean? I glanced around, suddenly feeling like the walls were closing in again. Who won't let you? I pressed, squeezing her shoulders gently. Her gaze flicked past me, and her eyes filled with terror. You have to hide. They're coming for you, too. My heart raced at her words. I didn't want to believe it, but the air crackled with a tension I couldn't ignore. Before I could respond, a loud knock echoed through the door, making both of us jump. It felt like a warning bell. Open up, a voice shouted from outside. It was authoritative and cold, sending a chill down my spine. Go, Lisa urged, trying to push me back. They can't find you here. But I couldn't leave her behind. I felt a surge of urgency amidst the fear. No, I'm not going without you. Listen to me. She grabbed my wrist, her grip desperate. There's no time. If you want to survive, You have to trust me. I could see the fear etched on her face. It mirrored my own. The knocks grew louder. Last chance. Open the door. I turned quickly, my mind racing. This was bad. My instincts screamed to flee, but I could not abandon my friend. Then I noticed a window at the far side of the room. It was locked, but it was our only escape. Help me with this, I urged, my heart pounding as I raced toward it. Lisa hesitated but followed. We reached the window just as the door splintered with another violent knock. I glanced back, dread pooling in my stomach. Hurry, I pleaded. The sound of splintering would echoed in my ears when suddenly, the door burst open, and shadows filled the doorway. I could barely make out their faces before I turned back to the window. It was now or never. With one swift motion, I shoved the window open. Let us go, I shouted as the figures advanced. Just as we climbed through, a hand clutched my ankle. I gasped and panic surged. Help, I screamed, the night closing in around us. In that moment, I realized escaping the hospital was just the beginning. The real nightmare was only starting. The ground felt cold beneath me as I tumbled onto the gritty pavement outside. I rolled away from the window, gasping for breath. Lisa followed close behind, her eyes wide with terror. We both scrambled to our feet, but I barely took in the night air before the sound of pounding footsteps echoed ominously from the hospital's entrance. Run, I shouted, grabbing Lisa's hand. We surged into the darkness, guided only by faint streetlights that flickered like dying stars. My mind raced. Who were those people? What did they want with us? I had no answers. Only an overwhelming need to get as far away from the hospital as possible. As we sprinted down the deserted street, the faint glow of neon signs flickered like beacons in the distance. Bars and diners where I once found comfort now felt like mirages. The night drew us deeper into unfamiliar territory. My chest burned with every labored breath, but I didn't dare stop. Wait. Lisa pulled back, struggling to keep pace. I can't go any further. Panic laced her voice, and I knew I couldn't let her falter now. Just a little longer, I urged, glancing back toward the darkened hospital. I half expected to see silhouettes pouring out after us. We need to find a place to hide. A dim alleyway caught my eye, shadowy and inviting. I led Lisa into it, pressing our bodies against the cold brick wall. The world outside faded into whispers of wind and distant traffic. We both held our breath, listening, waiting. Then, just beyond the alley's mouth, I heard it. Footsteps. Heavy and deliberate, echoing in the silence. My heart thumped each beat louder than the last. I braced myself, peering around the edge of the wall. The figures from the hospital were close, moving with purpose. Their faces were obscured, but the authority in their postures was unmistakable. There they are, one of them shouted. A sickening chill coursed through me. They were looking for us. We have to go back, Lisa murmured, panic etched on her face. They'll catch us if we stay here. No, I hissed, squeezing her hand tighter. If we go back, they'll take us. We need a plan. Fear mixed with desperation in her eyes. What do you mean? I scanned our surroundings, searching for anything that could buy us time. A stack of empty crates caught my attention. They created a small barrier at the side of the alley. We can hide behind those. Just stay quiet. We crept toward the crates, crouching low. Our breaths felt too loud as we pressed against the rough wood. The footsteps grew nearer, and I risked another glance. The figures had stopped at the alley entrance, muttering to each other. Words I couldn't make out twisted tension in my gut. What if they find us? Lisa whispered. Her voice trembled. What will they do? I don't know, I admitted. But we can't let them catch us. We have to stay strong. Suddenly, I noticed something. Just beyond the figures, a flicker of light reflected off metal. Curiosity mixed with dread, and I focused. It was a badge. They were officers. An icy wave of confusion washed over me. Look, I murmured to Lisa, nodding toward the entrance. They're not just any people. But our reprieve was short-lived. One of the figures turned, and I froze as their gaze swept over the alley. Check down there, they said, their voice like ice. They can't have gone far. The urge to bolt rose again, fear mixed with instinct, a primal need to escape. My heart was racing. Just then, I spotted a door at the end of the alley. A way out? Lisa, this way? I breathed, my voice barely above a whisper. Now, we pushed past the crates and sprinted toward the door, the footsteps growing louder behind us. I yanked on the knob, it was locked. No. My heart sank. Come on. Just as I turned to face the alley, the figures were moving toward us, shadows blending with the darkness. I felt trapped. I couldn't let them catch us. I heard Lisa's breath hitch. Fear was radiant in her eyes. Then I saw it. A small window beside the door, slightly ajar. This way, I shouted, shoving the window open. I climbed through, but my stomach dropped when I realized Lisa hadn't made it yet. Come on, I urged, reaching back for her. You can do it. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the advancing shadows. I can't. Trust me, I yelled, panic surging within me. The urgency was paramount. I grabbed her arm and pulled. Just as a dark figure rounded the corner, its face momentarily illuminated by a flickering streetlight, Lisa finally jumped through the window, and I yanked her into the cool night air just as the figure lunged toward us. We tumbled to the ground outside, just out of reach, but we weren't safe yet. We scrambled to our feet, the night looming like a predator. I could feel their eyes on us. I had escaped the hospital, but the real terror had just begun to chase us. We sprinted into the shrouded streets, breaths coming in ragged gasps as the darkness loomed heavy around us. The sounds of the night enveloped us, the distant hum of cars and the rustle of wind, eerily mocking the chaos we had just escaped. Lisa and I focused on the rhythm of our feet against the asphalt, pushing further away from the uncertainty left behind at Hollows End Hospital. The flashing neon signs welled closer, beckoning us towards something resembling safety. We have to hide, I breathed, glancing over my shoulder, half expecting the figures from the hospital to burst from the shadows. Somewhere quick. Lisa's eyes darted while she reeled almost from exhaustion. That diner up ahead, she exclaimed, pointing frantically. It was illuminated, a small pocket of warmth in the cold night. Without waiting for a reply, I tugged on her hand, and we sprinted toward it. We slipped inside the diner's door, the pleasant ding of a bell somehow grounding us. The place was nearly empty, just a handful of tired souls nursing late-night meals and coffee. We slid into a booth in the far corner, trying to blend into the everyday mundanity. I scanned the room, still coiled tight, waiting for someone from the hospital to come barreling through the door. Do you think they saw us? Lisa asked, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know, but we can't just sit here, I murmured. We need to figure out what to do next. The warmth of the diner contrasted sharply with the cold dread still coiling in my gut. The memory of the figure in white flashed in my mind, as did that bone-chilling whisper. Lisa picked at the napkin on the table, visibly shaken. That was what was happening. We didn't even have time to think. Everything spiraled so quickly, she whispered, glancing around as if expecting to see those dark figures lurking just out of view. I leaned in closer, determined. We need to talk to someone. We can't keep running blindly. There has to be a record, someone who's aware of why things have been off at that place. She nodded, biting her lip. But who? Before I could think of a response, the door swung open. My heart dropped as a familiar shadow filled the entrance, and I tensed, half expecting to see Lisa's co-workers or possibly officers. Instead, it was an older man, his uniform dusty, and the sunken eyes full of concern. I've been looking for you too, he called, stepping towards us, an unsettling calmness radiating from him. It was Jack, a former paramedic who had worked the wards at Hollows End long before our shifts had overlapped. You're not safe here, he said quietly, glancing over his shoulder as if sensing someone at the door. We need to talk, now. I glanced at Lisa, uncertainty flooding my senses. Was he a sign of hope, or just another shadow creeping in? Before we could breathe a word, he continued, They've been looking for you. We need to regroup. You must have seen something. Panic gripped me, but beneath the fear, I felt a flicker of defiance. What do you mean, they? Who are they? It's not as simple as that, Jack insisted, his voice low. All those who disappeared, something kept them. It knows how to lure you in. It was never just about the hospital. What are you saying? Lisa whispered, terror dawning in her eyes. Jack leaned closer, urgency welling in his voice. The connections run deeper than you can imagine. Trust me, I have answers. But we don't have time. You both need to stay close. My head spun, a whirlwind of confusion and fear. We had escaped one horror only to run into another. You're sure we can trust you? I asked warily. Jack's expression hardened, eyes glistening with a deep-seated urgency. There's no time for doubt. They're coming. With that, The diner felt suffocating. I could sense the walls closing in, the outside world fading under the weight of secrets and shadows mingling with the past. With no clear answers, I felt anxiety coil around me, but I knew that staying put was not an option. Fine, I finally said, adrenaline fueling my resolve. What is next? Follow me. We all ducked low as Jack led us through the diner and out the back door into the cool night. As we entered the narrow alleyway, I felt the air wane, heavy with apprehension. Whatever is happening, we'll figure it out together, I reassured Lisa, squeezing her hand. But let us keep an eye on each other. We can't let whatever it is catch us unprepared again. As we navigated the alley, shadows ebbed and flowed, dancing just beyond our line of sight. The weight of what we had encountered clung to us, unanswered questions and uncertainties spiraling like smoke. The dread of knowing we were not entirely free lingered, a constant reminder of the specters of Hollow's End. And as we moved deeper into the night, a chilling whisper followed us. Help me, a reminder that whatever haunted those halls, whatever lived in that darkness, hadn't given up on us yet.